The next verses are about those aspects of our experience which we call sensory. They're aspects of experience which we understand in terms of the senses. The next few verses give us some options with regard to the senses. As I've mentioned before, in Indian thought, they usually list 6 senses, the 5 usual ones, and also the mind being the sense organ which perceives mental objects. It's got a certain logic to it, hasn't it? But the next verse refers to the 5 senses, which correspond to notions of a shared objective world. The following verse, verse 738, deals with the mind sense separately. So let's get on with 737. The senses and their objective worlds are meant for the stupid, but not for the wise. The ignorant grasp after names, the wise comprehend the meaning. So this is our usual state of affairs. It's one of stupidity. We're totally caught up. And what's meant by this is we're an automatic. We're getting on with things without questioning what we're getting on with, without inquiring into the nature of our situation. And this is most of us, most of the time. Even if you're an enlightenment practitioner, you're often caught up in this so-called sensory world. And what does this mean? It means our focus is out there. Especially if you're sighted, your focus is taken up by this rather overwhelming and rather amazing visual panorama. You notice things, you notice others, you notice what's attractive, you notice what's ugly, and you're always sizing things up. Is that a threat to me? Can I make use of this? Is this to my advantage? And so on. And that's what's called grasping after names. The ignorant, in our stupidity, in our state of ignorance, we grasp after names. This is sizing things up. Sizing things up, for example, in the visual field. Sizing situations up. Is this to my advantage? Is this to my detriment? Do I want this? Do I not want this? So this is engrossment. This is infatuation with the senses and their objective worlds. The world of sight, the world of sounds, the worlds of touch, taste and smells. And these are the worlds that we share with each other. We assume anyway that we're all experiencing the same objective world. So this is grasping after names, making sense of it all. Seeing patterns and creating structures. But the option, if we're an enlightenment practitioner, in which case we can count ourselves among the wise, is to comprehend the meaning. And what's meant here by meaning is significance. Comprehend the significance of the world that appears to us. And this is something I've explored before in talking about not focusing on individual parts, but on the fact that there is something. And in doing so, it's possible to tune in to what we could call the presence of the world, without judging it in terms of its component parts, just the fact that it's here at all. Just the fact that this universe is here. It is present. It's what presents itself to us. It's what's presenting itself to our awareness. This is its significance. In presenting itself to awareness, our best response is to enter into witnessing. This is our meditation, witnessing the presence. We're no longer concerned with an objective world, and we're no longer concerned with a person experiencing it. We're simply witnessing the presence. This is suchness. So we can come back to this. We can rest in this. But there's a lot more going on than the objective world. Let's have a look at the next verse. 738. The sixth Vijnana is not to be understood as non-attachment or as attachment. The wise who are devoid of the fault of being are not committed to a definite theory. So the five senses are the five Vijnanas. The sixth Vijnana is this mind. And this is actually where we spend a lot of our time. I mentioned how in the objective world we're caught up in it, we get lost in it. There's an attachment. The attention is attached to it. The attention is always going from one thing to another. And in the same way, the attention is always going in our minds from one scenario to another, from one daydream to another, from one fantasy to another, from one belief or thought construction to another. These are what are meant by theories, mental constructions. So we're being told that it's not to be understood as non-attachment or as attachment, because what's going on in our mind actually fuels our relationship with an objective world, with an external world. So in a sense it is attachment, but it's also non-attachment, because it's what actually fuels our attachment. It fuels our attachment and our engagement with an objective external world. This mind, this pattern of attachments, this pattern of fueling attachments, is driven by feelings. It's driven by feelings in the body. It's a dynamic feedback engine which drives us along. Our thoughts, our mental understanding, our mental states are fueled by feelings. And these mental states reinforce the feelings. This is the feedback loop that we're stuck in. So it's not just a question of simple attachment and non-attachment. We're caught up in this self-perpetuating feedback loop. And like sonic feedback, it's quite painful. It's painful. And the wise here have a way out. They're devoid of the fault of being. And the fault of being is the fault of being in this feedback loop and getting on without questioning our assumption of an external world. This is our being, a me here in a world out there. But if we bypass, if we don't get into that, if we question that and examine that assumption and realize that it doesn't really hold water, it's an assumption only. If we can see this feedback loop which is driving us to behave in certain ways, if we can get back to the feelings and observe how these feelings fuel the thoughts, and in that observation allow ourselves to step out from that feedback loop. In this way, we're freeing ourselves from our mindset. There's just these feelings going on, and these feelings prompt us to adopt a particular mindset. And this is the hard work of spiritual practice. It's allowing these feelings to go on without building a particular drama, story, mindset about them. And this is what's meant by a definite theory, a definite understanding. It's just feelings going on. We don't want to even get into saying whether these feelings are painful or not. Although in Buddhist practice we're allowed to do so, but that's as far as we go. What we really want to observe is the coming and going of these feelings. So the spiritual practitioner does not reinforce the fault of being, does not reinforce the fault of building up the understanding of a me here in the world out there, and does not commit to a particular mindset. We get in touch with these feelings, and as I've said many times before, it's like not scratching the itchy spot. We want to scratch it, and this scratching is about generating a particular mindset, a particular drama, a particular story about me, a particular story about the world. We bypass that. Although I've used this analogy quite a lot about not scratching the itchy spot. You don't want to just be sitting there in discomfort, trying not to scratch it. We need to play around with it to some extent. Depends how itchy this particular spot is. We have to resort to whatever techniques we can. We have to appreciate that we're more than this itchy spot, and realize our nature as capacity for everything that is happening. You can also look at an opportunity for experiencing these feelings in a different way. There's probably a lot can be done which explores our relationship with pain. It's not within my expertise, but it's something which as individuals we can explore. The point though is that particular sensation doesn't have to be what we think it is. The main thing here is not to be committed or attached to a particular mindset. And this mindset is the mindset of our sensibilities, of our moods. It's the mindset not so much of our comfort zone as of our discomfort zone.